My cousin spent all afternoon mocking my boring government job in front of the whole family. He thought I was a joke, until I took a work call and his Navy SEAL father heard my call sign. The silence that followed was a weapon, and my uncle aimed it right at his son. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The 4th of July barbecue was a sensory assault. After 96 hours of sterile quiet, staring at encrypted data streams in a windowless room, the smell of charcoal, the sharp pops of distant fireworks, and the overlapping shouts of my relatives felt like a physical weight. I was on a rare, 2-week leave, and I had never felt more disconnected. My body was physically in my Uncle Robert's sunny backyard, but my mind was still thousands of miles away, stuck in the hum of a server room. I was nursing a bottle of water by the patio, trying to look normal, when my cousin Marcus found me. Marcus, in tech sales, measured a person's worth by their car and their commission. "Ellie, still rocking that 10-year-old sedan, I see," he boomed, flashing a smile that was all teeth. He clapped me on the shoulder, and I fought the urge to flinch. "It gets me where I need to go, Marcus," I said, my voice flat. "Yeah, but where is that? Your boring little cubicle in DC? Come on, Alina, you're smarter than that. Don't you ever want to do something? You know, real?" He gestured broadly, encompassing his own perceived success. I felt a familiar, dull ache of exhaustion. It wasn't just the jet lag, it was the bone-deep weariness of holding two lives. One was the simple, quiet Alina, the government analyst who pushed paper. The other was a life I couldn't share, a life that was currently screaming at me to check my perimeter and identify all exits. I looked at my cousin, who considered a successful sales quarter to be a life-defining event, and felt a profound, isolating pity. The gap between us wasn't a disconnect, it was a canyon. "Real like that?" I asked, nodding to the new, offensively large luxury watch on his wrist. Marcus's smile widened. He positively preened, lifting his arm to catch the afternoon sun. "This, just a little bonus. Smashed my quota. Again, my boss says I'm a shark, Ellie, a killer." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, though half the yard could still hear him. "You know what my commission was last month? More than you make in a year. A year." He seemed to expect a reaction, envy, perhaps, or at least impressed surprise. I just felt tired. The numbers he was bragging about felt like monopoly money compared to the stakes I was used to. "That's great, Marcus. I'm happy for you," I said, and the worst part was I meant it. I was happy he could find such simple, loud joy in his work. "Happy for me?" he scoffed, mistaking my sincerity for weakness. "I'm not trying to make you happy, I'm trying to wake you up. You're wasting your potential pushing paper for some government bureaucrat. You're not doing anything important." That word again, important. I took a slow sip of my water, the ice clinking against the glass. I thought about the briefing I'd given 48 hours prior, a briefing that had directly informed a mission that was, at this very moment, saving lives. I thought about the young operators whose safety depended on the data I analyzed, data I pulled from the ether. They were the killers. Marcus was just a salesman. But he had forgotten one crucial thing, something my entire family had forgotten. The quietest people often have the most to hide. This was nothing new. Marcus had been this way since we were kids. He was the one setting off firecrackers in the driveway while I was inside reading. He was the one who got the flashy new sports car for his 16th birthday, while I saved for years to buy my reliable, unremarkable sedan. His entire life was a performance, loud and bright and demanding applause. My life, by necessity, was the opposite. After college, I was recruited into the Air Force's intelligence wing. To the family, I was Alina, the analyst. My job was a vague, boring data entry position in Washington, D.C. I couldn't correct them. I couldn't explain that my cubicle was often a secure, windowless facility. I couldn't tell them that my data entry was actually signals intelligence, intercepting and interpreting foreign communications to provide real-time, actionable intel to Special Operations Forces. Today, Marcus was in rare form. He was wearing a pink polo shirt stretched tight over his gym-built chest, boat shoes with no socks, and a blindingly white pair of shorts. He looked less like a person and more like a billboard for a lifestyle brand. "Seriously, Ellie," he continued, grabbing a beer from a cooler. "You shall. Let me get you an interview at my firm. We could use some smart people in logistics. It's not as thrilling as sales, but at least you double your salary. You could finally buy a decent car." He laughed, and a few of our aunts and uncles chuckled along, seeing it as good-natured ribbing. But I saw the casual disdain in his eyes, the genuine pity he had for my quiet, unassuming life. He truly believed he was superior in every way, and the fact that I wouldn't let him save me was an insult to his ego. I was framing a polite refusal when I felt it. Not a ring, not a jingle, but a sharp, insistent buzz from the specialized satellite phone clipped inside the waistband of my jeans, hidden by my loose shirt. My blood went cold. That phone was for emergencies only. It was not supposed to buzz while I was on leave. It was never supposed to buzz unless the world was ending or a mission was going sideways. "Excuse me," I said, my voice suddenly sharp. I didn't wait for a reply, just turned and moved fast, away from the music and the laughter, heading for the quietest corner of the yard. "Whoa, sensitive," I heard Marcus call after me. Did I hit a nerve? I ignored him, ducking behind the detached garage. My heart was pounding a new, frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pulled out the device. It was a high-priority, encrypted notification. A voice-only check-in. My commander. My hands were steady as I accepted the connection, a lifetime of training kicking in, pushing Alina the cousin aside and letting the professional surface. "Sir." The connection was terrible, full of static and digital noise. "Kestrel, confirm, package." The call was breaking up, but I caught the two words that mattered, my call sign and the data package I had uploaded before my flight. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. This wasn't a social call. This was work. This was my clever trap, the simple, unavoidable fact of my duty. I had to respond, and I had to use protocol. I couldn't risk a compromised line. The static hissed. I had to be clear. I had to be fast. I was no longer at a barbecue. I was on duty. "Sir, this connection is unstable," I said, my voice dropping into the clipped, formal cadence of my profession. The noise on the line was too thick. "This is Kestrel. I cannot confirm the data package. I will move to a secure terminal and reestablish. Kestrel out." I terminated the call. My secure terminal was my laptop back at my parents' house, and I'd have to go there immediately. The barbecue was over for me. I stood there for a second, my lungs tight, my mind already running through checklists, revisualizing the data I'd sent. Had it been corrupted? Was the mission compromised? I turned, and my heart just about stopped. My Uncle Robert was standing 10 feet away, by the corner of the garage, holding a pair of grilling tongs. He wasn't looking at me like my uncle. The relaxed, dad-at-the-grill persona was gone. His posture was rigid, his gaze sharp and analytical. He was still, with the kind of absolute, predatory stillness that only comes from years of discipline. He was the retired Navy SEAL, the operator, and his eyes were locked on me with an intensity that chilled me to the bone. He hadn't just heard me, he had listened. "What's wrong, Ellie?" Marcus's voice cut through the tension. He sauntered around the corner, a smirk plastered on his face. "Your boss mad you're taking too long in the bathroom? Need to get back to those spreadsheets." He was completely oblivious. He saw me, and he saw his father, but he couldn't read the room. He couldn't see the silent, high-stakes conversation happening between me and his dad in the space of a single look. I kept my eyes on Uncle Robert. He hadn't moved. His gaze was an interrogation. He knew. He didn't know what I did, but he knew what that language meant. He knew unstable connection and secure terminal were not terms a paper pusher used, and he knew call sign. Marcus, emboldened by the silence, stepped forward. "Dad, you should hear this. I'm trying to help her, get her a real job, and she gets all huffy and runs off to take a call from her boss. Probably just some GS5 supervisor checking her timesheet. He laughed again, a braying, self-satisfied sound. He was trying to regain control, to re-establish himself as the alpha of the conversation, but he was so far out of his depth he was drowning and didn't even know it. The mockery was his only tool, and he wielded it with clumsy desperation. Robert's eyes flicked to his son for a fraction of a second. It was a look of such profound disappointment it was almost physical. Then his gaze snapped back to me. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, broken only by the distant pop of a firecracker and Marcus's fading chuckle. This was the moment. This was the irrefutable proof, not in a document, but in the air between us. My uncle's entire career was built on recognizing threats, on reading people, on unders. Tanding the difference between a civilian and a professional. And right now, he was looking at a professional. He finally spoke, and his voice was not the warm, friendly one I'd known all my life. It was low, hard, and resonant with command. "What," he said, not asking, "did you just say?" Marcus froze, his smirk faltering. "Dad, what are you talking about? I was just joking with Ellie." Robert ignored him, his eyes never left mine. "Your call sign," he pressed, taking one slow step closer. "What is it?" This was a test. I recognized his stance, the command presence. He was no longer my uncle. I was no longer his niece. We were two operators, on different sides of the same coin, meeting on a field of battle. I straightened instinctively, my own training taking over, my posture shifting from slouching relative to officer at attention. "I'm on leave, Uncle Robert," I said, my voice quiet but firm. It was a polite way of saying stand down. He shook his head, a tiny, sharp movement. "That wasn't a request. What is your call sign?" There was no way out but through. "Kestrel," I said clearly. "My call sign is Kestrel, sir." The word hung in the air. Robert's eyes widened just slightly. A flash of understanding, of shock, and then of profound, undeniable respect. He knew exactly what Kestrel meant. Kestrels are falcons, hunter birds. In his world, it meant signals intelligence, direct support for Tier 1 operations. The people who were the eyes and ears for men like him. He closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them. He looked at his stunned, smirking son. His face hardened into a mask of pure, cold fury. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. He used a voice that I'm sure had made grown men tremble. "Apologize," he barked. Marcus flinched. "What, Dad, it was a joke, she knows I said," Robert's voice sliced through the air, sharp as a knife, "apologize, now." Marcus's face went white. "For what?" "For this," Robert gestured between me and Marcus. "You stand here, flashing your watch, bragging about your commissions in front of a woman who has done more for this country than you will ever even comprehend. You mock her boring job?" He laughed, a short, terrifying sound. "You noisy, arrogant child, you have no idea what true service is. You have no concept of sacrifice. You make noise, she is a quiet professional. The kind of person who keeps you safe so you can go on making your noise. You are not fit to stand in her shadow. Now, you will apologize to her for your disrespect." The silence that followed was absolute. The entire backyard seemed to have gone quiet. Marcus looked as if he'd been struck. His face, usually so ruddy with confidence, was pale and slack. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at me, truly looked at me for the first time, and saw not his boring cousin, but a stranger. A stranger his father, the man he'd idolized and feared his whole life, had just defended with a terrifying ferocity. Ellie, I'm sorry," he stammered. It was weak and forced, but it was there. "Get out of my sight," Robert ordered, his voice flat. "Go, now." Marcus didn't need to be told twice. He turned and practically fled back to the party, disappearing into the crowd. The tension broke. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My Uncle Robert again, looked at me. The hard edges softened, replaced by a deep, weary understanding. He nodded, a single, sharp gesture of profound respect. "Kestrel," he said, testing the name. He stepped forward and placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. You need to make your call." "Yes, sir," I said. "Welcome home, Alina," he said, his voice quiet just for me, "and thank you for your service." I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I walked past him, my satellite phone clutched in my hand, and headed for my car. I had to go. I had a job to do. But as I walked away, for the first time in my entire career, for the first time in my entire life, I finally felt seen. I felt understood by the only family member who possibly could. And that was more than enough.